Hi, I'm Clara, and I'm 27 years old. I thought my family could never surprise me again. We were the kind of family that scheduled our spontaneity, where Christmas presents were bought in July and life's big decisions were made round the dinner table with a spreadsheet. That's why the day my mom casually dismantled my entire childhood, I felt the ground vanish beneath my feet. It started like any other rain-spotted Thursday in Seattle. I was tucked into the corner of my small apartment, the steady hum of my laptop a familiar soundtrack to my life as a content strategist. Across from me, the skyline was a smudged gray painting behind a curtain of drizzle. It was a peaceful, isolated bubble until my phone buzzed, shattering the silence. Mom's name, accompanied by a photo of her beaming with my brother at last year's 4th of July picnic, flashed on the screen. Her voice was a little too bright, a little too breezy, like she was reading from a script she hadn't quite mastered. "Guess what, sweetie?" she chirped, and I could almost see her waving a hand dismissively. "We finally sold the old house. It's such a relief." For a blissful second, I thought she meant they had accepted an offer, that the long-discussed plan was finally in motion. But that one word, finally, hung in the air, heavy with finality. It implied a process that was concluded, a chapter definitively closed. My grip tightened on my phone. "What do you mean, sold? When did that happen?" The words fell foreign in my mouth. "Oh, last week," she replied, her tone as light as if she were telling me about a new recipe she'd tried. "Your dad, your brother, and your aunt handled all the paperwork. We didn't want to bother you. You've been so busy with work and city life." There was a pause, filled only by the staticky sound of her expectation. "You understand, right?" I sat there at my tiny kitchen table, the cold dregs of my morning coffee staring back at me from a chipped mug. The house, the one my dad had literally built with his own hands, his knuckles scraped and raw from laying the bricks for the front porch. The one with my height, a chaotic timeline of scribbled lines, still etched into the doorframe of the pantry. The cherry tree in the backyard, its branches the permanent home for the rusty hooks where we'd hang fairy lights every summer, transforming the garden into a twinkling, magical kingdom just for us. They sold our home, the physical container for every memory that made me who I am. And in that moment, the most crushing detail wasn't the sale itself. It was the casual revelation that everyone my dad, my brother, my aunt had known. They had gathered, discussed, and signed away a piece of my history, and no one had thought to include me. The message was as clear as it was painful. In the story of our family, my chapter was already being packed away. I froze. The word busy echoed in my mind, hollow and insulting. Busy with work. Just last month, I had called her. The phone pressed to my ear as I stared at the rain on my balcony, my voice laced with a homesickness I rarely admitted. I'd asked about coming home for the holidays. Her reply had been a vague, "We'll figure it out later." Not a single hint of the seismic shift happening back home. The silence on her end hadn't been forgetfulness. It had been a choice. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I asked, my voice so quiet it was almost a whisper, the fight draining out of me, replaced by her cold, heavy weight. "Oh, honey, it was just so sudden," she said, the rehearsed breeziness returning. "Your brother's friend had a buyer. We wanted to make it quick." The excuse was flimsy, a paper shield against my confusion. I hung up after a few more hollow pleasantries, my hand trembling. Then, a morbid curiosity pulled me to Facebook. There it was, a photo posted by my brother Adam. The digital family scrapbook I was apparently no longer in. Goodbye, childhood home. New beginnings ahead. The comment section was a chorus of my relatives and neighbors, a symphony of closure to which I hadn't been invited. "Such a beautiful chapter closing," one wrote. My eyes scanned for my name, for a tag that never was. I was a ghost in my own family's narrative. Scrolling deeper, I found a video from my aunt. There they were, my entire family, laughing and clinking champagne flutes on the very porch my father had built. And in the background, like a stab to the heart, was my old bedroom window, the gauzy, floral print curtains I'd painstakingly sewn during a high school summer still fluttering in the breeze. That night, I barely slept. The memories that surfaced weren't of birthday parties or Christmases, but of sacrifice. 3 years ago, when Dad lost his job, I became the family's silent lifeline. Every month, a portion of my paycheck was wired home, a digital transfusion to cover the property taxes. I had sat with them at this very kitchen table, my own credit score on the line, to help refinance the mortgage, believing it was our shared burden. But when it came to selling the heart of it all, my opinion was deemed irrelevant. The next morning, I drove the 3 hours back, the familiar landscape blurring past my tear-filled windows. When I pulled up, the sold sign was stabbed into the lawn my brother and I had once raced across. Through the living room window, I saw my mom and brother moving through a forest of cardboard boxes. "Claire, you didn't have to come all this way," Mom said, her voice tight with surprise and a hint of guilt when I walked in. The scent of dust and memories thick in the air. "Clearly I did," I replied, my gaze sweeping the half-packed room. "Why didn't you tell me?" Adam wouldn't meet my eyes, focusing intently on taping a box shut. "It was just business," he muttered. "You don't even live here anymore. What's the big deal?" "The big deal?" My voice shook, betraying the calm I was trying to project. "You used my name on the refinance. I own part of this house." Asterisk. The room went still. Mom blinked, as if the financial reality was a minor, inconvenient detail. "Oh honey, it's all one family. You know we wouldn't cheat you." But my eyes were already on the real estate documents scattered across the table. I saw the crisp signatures Mom, Dad, and Adam finalizing a deal that legally and emotionally should have included me. The space where my name should have been was a blank, sullen testament to where I now stood in this family. When I got back to the stark silence of my apartment, a cold, clear determination settled over me. The initial shock had crystallized into a focused resolve. I ignored the pile of unwashed coffee mugs and went straight to my desk, the glow of my laptop screen illuminating my face in the dim room. I began to dig, my fingers flying across the keyboard, plunging into the digital archives of my life. I scoured my email, my heart pounding in my ears, until I found it, the scanned PDF of the loan agreement from 3 years ago. There, in stark, undeniable black and white, was my signature, my name listed as a co-signer. The legal jargon suddenly made perfect, damning sense. Without my financial backing, the refinance would never have been approved, and by extension, they could not have legally sold the house without my consent. I sat back, the printed pages cool in my trembling hands. The truth wasn't just a realization, it was a physical blow. The air left my lungs in a soft, pained whisper. "They didn't just exclude me," I murmured to the empty room, the words hanging in the silence. "They betrayed me." Over the next few days, I moved with a methodical calm I didn't know I possessed. I became a silent archivist of my own betrayal, gathering every piece of evidence, the digital footprints of my bank transfers, the email threads filled with false reassurances, the legal documents that now felt like contracts of my own naivety. All the while, my family's parallel universe continued to play out on social media, a cheerful slideshow of their new beginning. My mom posted a picture of Adam carrying a heavy box, captioned, "New chapter for us." So thankful for Adam for handling everything. The words were a deliberate erasure. There was no mention of the monthly transfers, no acknowledgement of the credit I had risked. I was a ghost in their happy narrative. A week later, fortified by my stack of evidence, I called a real estate attorney. Her voice was calm and professional as I laid out the entire sordid story, my voice cracking only once. She listened, without interruption, until I was finished. "Claire," she said, her tone leaving no room for doubt, "they can't legally sell the property without your signature. Given the refinance structure, you might actually own the majority share." For the first time in weeks, the heavy fog of pain and confusion lifted, replaced by a sharp, clarifying light. We filed an injunction to pause the sale immediately. The next time I called my parents, my voice didn't waver. This wasn't a daughter calling home. It was a co-owner stating a fact. "Mom," I said, the words deliberate and clear. "I spoke to a lawyer. This sale is on hold." "What?" she gasped, The sound a mixture of shock and indignation. You had no right to sell it without my signature. I co-own the house. You used my name for the refinance. That means my approval is required. The silence on the other end was thick and heavy. Then, I heard Adam's voice snatch the phone, bristling with anger. You're blowing this out of proportion, Clara. It's just property. No, Adam, I replied, my voice steady and final. It's my childhood, my trust, and my money. You all decided I didn't deserve to be part of the family's decisions. So now, I'm making my own. Weeks bled into a tense, silent month. The news of the legal injunction spread through our extended family like wildfire. Fanned by the official, crisp letters my lawyer sent to my parents, my brother, and even the realtor. The facade of a smooth, happy transition crumbled. The quick sale my brother had bragged about was now buried under a mountain of legal paperwork and stalled indefinitely. My aunt called me one evening, her voice a hushed, guilty tremor on the line. Sweetheart, she began, I had no idea they hadn't told you. We all thought you were on board. The story they had woven for the family was now painfully clear. I was the successful, city-dwelling daughter, too busy, too independent, and too distant to be bothered with the sentimental trifles of a family home. They had painted me as the one who had moved on, using my ambition as a brush to whitewash their betrayal. But the truth, once unleashed, was a relentless force. The eager buyer, smelling the first hint of legal trouble, promptly backed out. The once chummy realtor, who had praised my brother's efficiency, now sent his calls straight to voicemail. The new chapter my mother had posted about so cheerfully had stalled on its very first page, plunging the family into a quiet, shamefaced chaos. Finally, my dad called. It wasn't my mom's cheerful deflection or Adam's defensive bluster. His voice was stripped bare, quiet and weathered with a fatigue I could feel through the phone. Clara, he started, the pause that followed heavy with unspoken regret. Maybe we didn't handle this right. The understatement hung in the air. No, Dad, I said, my own voice soft but unyielding. You didn't. I just wanted to make things easier for everyone, he continued, the words sounding like a mantra he'd been repeating to himself. You've always been the strong one, the one who had it all together. We thought you didn't need the house. I took a long, slow breath, looking out my apartment window at the city lights that suddenly felt so impersonal. I didn't need the house, Dad, I clarified, the core of my hurt finally articulated. I needed your honesty. There was nothing more to say. The silence that settled between us was the true end of the conversation, and perhaps of the old way our family functioned. A few months later, the proposed sale officially fell through. The legal knots were tied. The evidence of my financial stake to clear. In a final settlement to resolve the dispute, the property was transferred entirely to my name. My parents and Adam moved into a small, anonymous condo across town, their new chapter beginning not with a celebration, but with a retreat. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post a triumphant update online. Instead, I drove back one quiet, sun-dappled weekend. The key was mine alone now. I spent the days slowly cleaning the empty rooms, each sweep of the dustpan a quiet farewell. I took down the fairy lights from the cherry tree, their wires brittle with memory, and I planted new flowers at its base, a silent promise to something I couldn't quite name. The house was never just a building of wood and brick. It was a living symbol of everything I had willingly given and everything they had so carelessly taken for granted. And in the quiet of that empty, sunlit space, I finally began to understand the weight and the shape of what I had truly lost, and what I had, in the most painful way possible, regained. Now, the house has a new heartbeat. I rented out to a lovely young couple who just had their first baby. Hearing their excitement over the nursery and the backyard cherry tree was a strange, healing kind of closure. The rent they pay quietly covers my student loans each month, and for the first time, I've started seriously saving for my next big dreamer solo trip across Europe. A journey with no one's expectations to meet but my own. Sometimes, my mom still calls. My phone screen lights up with her name. And later, there's a voicemail filled with words about making peace and moving on. I listen, but I don't call back. I'm just not ready. For so many years, I was trapped in the belief that being the strong, dependable one meant I had to absorb every hurt and offer forgiveness on demand. I thought my strength was in how much I could carry for others. Now, I understand a different, more powerful truth. Real strength sometimes means walking away from the table that no longer serves you and unapologetically keeping what is just rightfully yours, your peace, your boundaries, your heart. If your family has ever made you feel invisible, if you've ever been the reliable one who was conveniently forgotten when it mattered most, remember this: you do not owe them access to your hard-won peace. You owe yourself the absolute freedom to protect it, even if that protection means creating a loving distance. So, tell me, where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below. I always check. And if you've ever been the forgotten one, the constant giver, the one whose name was left out of the story, please know you are not alone. Your story matters, and your voice deserves to be heard.